Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mind Your Mission, a podcast for women seeking wisdom and encouragement as we embrace God's purpose and stay focused on the good things that He's promised in His Word.
Yeah, this past weekend, I had the opportunity to attend a White Sulphur Springs retreat in Pennsylvania, which is an OCF retreat center, and OCF stands for Officers Christian Fellowship, and it's the Christian organization that played a really big role in college for Aaron and I's faith. And as cadets, we went there and we both got to experience the retreat firsthand. And this year I got to return not just as an attendee, but also a mentor to the current cadets, which was an awesome experience.
Yeah, I can attest. White Sulphur Springs was actually where I first remember witnessing that genuine joy in other people my age, other than Liz as my first roommate, of course, that I talked about when I shared my testimony a little while ago. And every year the retreat was really fun and a much needed break. But more than that, it was just a perfect middle of the school year check to see if I was really prioritizing my faith or not and prioritizing my time with the Lord. And White Sulphur Springs is also just a place where a lot of big events have happened for me. Sophomore year, I broke up with my boyfriend at White Sulphur Springs because our relationship was not glorifying the Lord. And then 2 years later, that's where we took our engagement pictures with my now husband. So, definitely a prominent spot. And I am excited to hear about how your time was last weekend.
It's funny that you say that because going up there this past weekend, I was like, I have no memories here of when I went here as a cadet. They all got out of my mind. But the one thing I remember is Erin breaking up with her boyfriend. That was the one thing. So
it was a big turning point for me, a good turning point. So, it's a good memory. It was obviously a hard thing. No breakup's fun, but it definitely changed the trajectory of my life and made me really think deeply about a lot of things. So
exactly. So White Sulphur Springs is an awesome place to go, a great place to go and grow your faith. And this year it was such a rewarding experience. So in this episode, I wanted to share just a few of the powerful statements that I took away from the weekend that stood out to me and have been on my mind ever since. And I hope they resonate with you as much as they do with me. So the first statement was said by Vice Admiral Lee, who was the main speaker at the retreat. And he said, the most important job you'll ever have is being a mother or a father, not a military officer. And I felt like this really hit home for me. This is something that's been on my mind a lot the past few months. And throughout the weekend, I got to talk with different women who had tried to juggle both. So they tried being present as moms also while trying to have a career in the military. And they all kind of said the same thing and told me other women that had similar feelings as them, that it is possible to do both, but you just have to know that it does come with a lot of sacrifice. Some of them relied on full-time nannies while others had to let go of certain responsibilities, whether it was at work or inside the home. And so the truth is something has to give. And I think that's an important conversation to have because the world says you can do both. You can be this boss babe and be this awesome mom, but you just have to know that there are a ton of sacrifices that come along with that. You cannot do both completely. That's why you either have to bring help in. It just doesn't work like that. And so I just think it's so important to talk about that. It's also crucial to be intentional about where we're putting our energy. And I think we need to be seeking God's direction in how He's calling us to use our time. Not necessarily how we want to use our time, but bringing it to God and seeing how He wants us to use our time. And talking throughout this weekend, I realized every family is different and what works for one might not work for another. But I think that's so important why we have to go to God first, because we can hear all these things from the world around us, but let's go to the source. Let's go to the Father and ask Him and send His presence.
Yeah, that's definitely important to seek God's wisdom on this and not the world's. And one reason I've realized that is because the world will tell you a different thing every time you ask, depending on the culture, depending on what year it is, depending on geography, where you're living, depending on who you're asking, you're going to get a different response for what's right every time. And the one thing that never changes is the Word of God. And every situation is so nuanced. And so that's why we really have to take a dive into the Word ourselves and pray ourselves because that's the only way you're really going to know what's right for you and the way that you're going to glorify the Lord the best. And that's another thing that we have to think on is not what's going to be best for our comfort, but what's going to serve the Lord and serve others best.
Yeah, we're not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Basically, our role here in our heart of this whole podcast is to point you to Scripture and encourage you to have those honest conversations with God. So we want you spending time in His Word and seeking His guidance, because that helps us figure out what sacrifices we need to make to align our lives with His plan. So whether this is adjusting your career goals or rethinking other priorities, the key is to having your hands open and being open to where God is leading us.
I also think it's important not to shy away from having these conversations with other women. Like, obviously, you want to be talking to the Lord about it, but to openly talk about it and have the healthy debate with other women. I know at the Academy, we heard from a lot of women, Christian women too, who did choose to make a career out of the military and found success there. And we didn't hear so much from the women who chose to get out and stay at home with their kids. And I bet that they found success in that decision too. It just looks a lot different than the success you find that can be measured by looking at the rank on someone's collar. So I think it would be beneficial to openly discuss all of the options for women and the consequences, both good and bad, of all of the choices that women have.
I feel like I couldn't make this realization that the home is such an important place to spend your time at the Academy, because you never hear about it, and it's just so indoctrinated into you that you have to be a leader and focus on your career, and that's just not the case, which is why I really have joy in talking about this with other women, because my eyes were open till I got out of the Academy and got out of that bubble. And at the end of the day, we, Erin and I, truly believe that the biggest impact we can have often starts in the home. So when we're able to trust God with these big life decisions, we can then move forward with confidence, knowing that He's working in every part of our life. Another statement that Vice Admiral Lee had said this weekend was, "What are you willing to put your stars on the table for?" And I changed this to bars on the table for, because Erin and I are O2s in the military. So basically, this is, what are you willing to put your career on the table for? And for me, this is my family. As I've thought and prayed about my role in both my military career and at home, I realized that once my military commitment is complete, I want to focus on the home and discipling my future children, God willing, and managing my husband and I's household. And I think that by doing this, I will allow my husband to fully thrive in his military career. And together we can create a more supportive environment for our family, because right now we're juggling both demands of having a career and the home. And it's not that bad right now because we don't have children, but there are definitely things that have to give. Like, I can't cook all these amazing meals that I would like to cook and eat as healthy as I want to and make a ton of things from scratch, because I just don't have the time to do that. But we are planning for a future when I am able to stay home and be more invested in our home. And I think by doing this, we allow him to have his full focus on the military. And so by doing this, someone asked me this weekend, when did you make the decision that you would have more of an impact at home than in the military? And I was saying, it's when I realized that by doing all the things at home, I can have a better impact on our military service, because I'm encouraging and helping equip my husband to go out there and make the military a better place. Because when we're both splitting our time between the two, we're not able to make the full impact that I think we are able to make. So I'm able to have a better impact on the military by encouraging my husband, because when I take care of everything at home, he doesn't have to worry about that. He doesn't have to leave work early to go pick up the kids from school. He doesn't have to get to work late because of family matters or the kids are sick. He doesn't have to skip work for that. I take the responsibility for that so that he can go and be the best officer that he can be. And so I think that's when I made that realization. I changed everything, because before I was like, well, I can have a positive impact on women in the military and all this stuff. And I think we can still do that, because we're still going to be able to have conversations with women in the military, because it's just our life. But I think equipping my husband is the most important thing, and encouraging him to do that is the most important thing. And I think that is why I decided to make this decision. And when it all kind of came clear to me that I can still have an impact on our nation and on our service through encouraging my husband.
I get really passionate about this topic because it's an aspect of being a stay-at-home mom that doesn't get emphasized enough. Like, if you're able to prepare meals, do laundry, take the kids to their appointments, everything like you're saying, like, then your husband doesn't have to worry about these things. And having experienced working and trying to do all of those things at the same time, it does affect my ability to contribute at work. Like, I try to be the best officer that I can be, but my bandwidth just isn't the same. And especially when you're talking about like being a witness in the military, I think a lot of people, they say that the military is their mission field, which can definitely be a thing. But also, in order to feel free and have the time to build the relationships and have good conversations with people, to lead a base Bible study, like, I don't know what that looks like exactly, but in order to have that time, other responsibilities have to be taken care of. And so another thing that culture doesn't want you to hear, I think that men, by design, want to be providers. And if you're making just as much money or more money than they are, then they don't feel that same urgency. If you stay home, then they have to perform. And they feel that positive pressure that will ultimately make them better in what they're doing and help them have a greater impact. So that's a side that culture definitely doesn't want you to hear, and that I don't even know that men are talking about enough with that honesty that they want to be providers. Like, maybe that's just my husband. I don't know. Like, that's just something that he feels, and I think it is inherent to a lot of men.
Yeah, my husband also definitely feels that we have a lot of conversations about that and how he feels this need to provide. I think it's their nature. But for me, going back to the statement that Admiral Lee said, putting my bars on the table basically means trusting that by investing in our home, I'll be making a lasting impact both for our family and within the military community. And I think it's a step of faith, but one that we believe will ultimately lead to greater strength and purpose in both our family life and our service to our country. Another statement that really resonated with me right now was said by a great mentor, Major Groves, who is one of the mentors at the academy who really pours into the cadets. But we did an optional session with him about suffering and pain, and the quote that I really got from it was, God allows what he hates to accomplish what he loves. And this truth kind of helped answer that difficult question of why God allows suffering. And this is really fitting for me right now because I have hip surgery tomorrow. So I really resonate with this statement. For the past couple years, I've dealt with this constant nagging pain in my hip, and I finally went and got an MRI and saw a specialist, and it's due to hip impingement. So basically, the head of my femur isn't rounded correctly, so it's hitting the other part of my hip, and it's caused like the cartilage, which is the labrum, to tear, and my bones are bruised in that area as well. So despite multiple rounds of physical therapy, I tried to deal with this in a non-invasive way. I eventually realized that surgery was the best option if I did want to return to my active lifestyle before the injury. So reflecting on this, I truly believe that God doesn't delight in my suffering or seeing me go through this pain. I think he hates to see his children hurt because he loves us so deeply. But I think he did allow it because he can bring about a greater good through it. So in my case, this injury has led me into a deeper relationship with the Lord. It has forced me to shift my priorities. So I used to really focus on running and physical fitness, and I would prioritize that above my time with the Lord. And with that being taken away, I'm still able to work out, just not as intensely as I was before. It has allowed me to be more intentional with my time with God and in his word. And also physically, I've seen a lot more benefits. I think my cortisol is a lot lower, and I've been able to sleep through the night for the first time in I don't know how long, probably since before the academy. I don't remember if I was sleeping through the night in high school. I just know I've struggled with sleeping through the night. And once I stopped running, I could sleep through the night, which is so crazy. And I feel like my body is also just less puffy. I feel better. I haven't gained any weight from not working out as much. And so I think that was a lie I was telling myself, that I had to work out and do all this in order to feel my best and look good. But that's just not the case, because I feel better now and I look the same, if not better, than I did when I was really focusing on my physical fitness. And I just do 30-minute dumbbell workouts every day. So it's been working, but we can get into fitness stuff in a later episode because I do love fitness. But I've also been reading the book of Job, going through all this as well. And I think this idea kind of becomes even clearer. So Job's suffering was a lot, way more than what I'm going through. And it seemed unjust. But even through it, he had an encounter with the Lord. His trials did not happen without a purpose. They actually brought him into a deeper understanding of God's sovereignty and his faithfulness. So similarly, while my hip injury is something I would have never chosen, I can see how God has been using it to refine me and draw me closer to him and reshape my priorities. In both Job's story and my own, the pain and suffering that we experience is not the end of the story. God is working through these difficult circumstances to accomplish something greater, which is deepening our faith and drawing us closer to him and ultimately fulfilling his loving purposes in our lives.
I love this. It's definitely reminded me of the phrase, if a story isn't good, it's not over. And it's been really cool, Liz, to see how God has used this injury to shape you. I know that it's slowed you down, but honestly, the pace that you're moving, it's a pace that I've never seen you move before, and it is very beautiful. Like, I've known you like 6 years now, and the insight I think that you've provided from the word on this podcast and just through things going on in your own life has just been so cool and encouraging to me and hopefully to others. Like this, I don't know, it's just been a unique vantage point that I've had to watch you walk through all this, and I think God is definitely using it.
Thank you. I don't even realize that, like just hearing you talk about it, like I don't realize that a lot has changed, but then as you say, I'm like, yeah, I've really leaned into rest and slowing down, and it's been the best thing ever. I used to be like a go, gotta get all this done, which I do like to get things done, but I've just found the beauty in sitting at the feet of the Lord and also just like slowing down in every aspect of my life, like cooking a nice dinner and taking time to read, just stuff like that that I felt like I never had the time to do before. I have just been slowing down and really enjoying the season that we're in right now, and I am nervous for the recovery, but I am excited to just lean into that rest a little bit more and have some time off of work to just recover. And I have like a list of books that I got from the retreat. They had a bunch of good books in the library that were like handpicked by the staff. So I took pictures of all of them. So I'm going to try to make it through a lot of those as well. But I'm thankful for the time to slow down, even though it will be a bit painful. But the last insight that I wanted to share from this weekend that was also from Major Groves was love is the greatest apologetic. And I think this statement shows that apologetics is more than just words or arguments. Love is one of the most visible and powerful evidences of our faith. Jesus said in the Bible that people would know his disciples by the way that we love one another. And this kind of love, it's unconditional, it's sacrificial, it's patient, and it speaks louder than any debate. I do think it's important to know why you believe what you believe and be able to communicate that well. But love is what breaks down the walls, and it builds the bridges, and it opens the door for genuine conversations about the gospel. So in a world that is searching for authenticity, it's our consistent Christ-like love that becomes the strongest defense of our faith. And it shows the transformative power of the gospel in action, because when people see who you were before and who you are after Christ, it is an awesome testimony of what the Lord's done in your life. And they can't deny that. Like, they can't deny that your life has changed and think why that happened. And so I think it's important to share your faith and talk about why you believe what you believe. But let's start by loving others, because that is the greatest apologetic.
Yeah, that is such a great reminder. And I know that I'm guilty of not putting my money where my mouth is sometimes. Like, sometimes I don't know. It takes work and time, like I talked about earlier, and it's a sacrifice, but that's what makes it different. I think that's what'll make people wonder why you're going out of your way to invest time and energy into them. So yeah, definitely a good reminder.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to everything about my weekend. It was a great weekend pouring into the younger cadets and getting to have great conversations and just great fellowship. It's weekends like that I feel like give us a little taste of what heaven will be like.
How did you feel looking at all of the younger cadets? Like, did you feel like you were just in that spot? Like you are way removed from that now? Like what was your perspective when you were like, I don't know, looking at them, seeing what they're walking through?
I feel like I have changed so much since the academy that I feel so kind of far removed from it. It wasn't that long ago, like 2.5 years ago, we had graduated, but I feel like my mindset has changed so much that I had to like kind of go back to where I was to kind of resonate with them and understand like what they're going through and where their minds are at. Because once you get out of the academy, you're out of that bubble and you can kind of see the world through a different lens. And I feel like that's kind of what has happened to me. And so it's kind of crazy, like looking back and being like, I hadn't been to that retreat since I was a sophomore in college because I had gotten canceled our junior and senior year because of COVID. And so just looking back at where I was then and where I am now, it is so, so crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like just thinking about that time, I feel like I was a completely different person, which is all good. And I think it makes me look forward and hope that I look back at this time and feel like I'm a completely different person too, just because of the power of Christ.
Mm-hmm. And when we really spend time with him and spend time in his word, I think we can do the change faster.
Yeah.
So it's super exciting. But how was your weekend? Because I know you had kind of a wild weekend with the inauguration, working that. So I'm interested to hear all about it.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the DC area. If you don't know, we're in Maryland. And so this week I was involved with some of the inauguration stuff. I was mostly overseeing public affairs for some of the safety and security teams that were patrolling the waterways. So it was cool to see the inner workings of the security that goes into such a big event like that. They call them National Special Security Events, NSSEs. And so it was a very cool experience, one that it'll be cool to talk about in the future. And it definitely made for a long, cold weekend. It was indeed very cold in DC. I didn't expect moving to Maryland that we would have like 15-degree days or even snow. Like we've had so much snow and like I just did not expect that. I don't even know that I've been in temperatures that cold. So it made for a long weekend. My son also turned 1 last week. And so it was awesome, so much fun, but also the little sleep regression that he had was not so much fun. I don't know why he needed to coincide that with the busy work week, but he wasn't sleeping much. I don't know if it was his teeth or just the fact that he would wake up and want to stand up because he's learning to walk right now. I don't know what it was, but it was a reminder to me to take motherhood just as it comes. That's the advice that I give to new moms that I talk to now, is just take it as it comes, because in the moment, in the middle of the night when your baby's not sleeping, you're trying to figure out why, like how to fix it, what's the long-term solution, and like the next day they might sleep through the night. So just like take it as it comes, one day at a time. And that's like true for all of life too. Like the word of God is a light unto our path, but it's not like a searchlight unto our path. Like we don't get to see the entire picture. We just get to see like the one small step ahead of us. And that's how it's meant to be lived out, because that means we have to be in close reliance with the Lord and trust him. So it was just a reminder of that this week. And I am excited to be through the inauguration. I feel like I can fully step into 2025 now. Like that was like the big thing that I had to get done. And so, yeah, I feel like I can like relax a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah, it's crazy you're talking about snow being in Maryland, because we got snow here in Virginia this week. We got snow like a few weeks ago, but it was like less than an inch. But we actually had snow and had teleworked yesterday because of the weather. So it is crazy because I'm not prepared for the snow. Like I grew up driving through snow and blizzards and all that, and went to college in the snow and blizzards. But going to Texas and then moving here, I just didn't expect there to really be snow or get this cold like you're saying. I feel like it's been abnormally cold. It's warming up next week here in the 50s, and I'm very excited for that.
Yep.
So I think it's just been abnormally cold, but it's been fun to see the snow. But I am not a winter girly, but I also like having all the seasons. Like I don't think I'm fully a southern girly either, but it's been fun to see the snow. And I'm sure, did Weston play in the snow at all?
He sat in it and just like touched it. He didn't really know what to do with it. He tried to eat it, which, I mean, as long as it's not yellow, right? So yeah, it was fun. I feel like growing up in Washington, like I love snow. I grew up with snow, but just didn't expect it here. So, and I think we just love getting outside. That's like something we do in the afternoons to, to make Weston feel better, to give him a break, to get some fresh air, to get some steps in. Like that's what I love to do in the afternoons. And we've still been doing it, but we've just had to learn to bundle. Like that's important to us to get outside, but it is like a lot of work because you gotta not only put your own clothes on, but you gotta put your baby's clothes on, and they're uncomfortable. And then so it's a lot of work, but we're making it happen.
Yeah, we'll get through it. I feel the same because I try to go for walks with my dog. Not exactly the same, but I try to get outside, and I've been lazy the past day or two because it's been snowy. But he hates the snow, our dog, so I'm like, I'm doing him a favor, but yeah, I'm still trying to get outside too because I think it's so important to get the sunshine and get the fresh air, but we're getting through winter together. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at mind_your_mission. I'll also have it linked below. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review to help us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, we're Erin and Liz helping you mind your mission.